The autumn sun was dipping low, casting long shadows along the city street, and the crisp wind rustled fallen leaves at the feet of passers-by. Outside a small, brightly lit toy store, a man and his young son stood together, their eyes glued to the display window. Behind the glass shimmered a sparkling purple bicycle, its metallic frame catching the light in a way that made it almost magical. "Dad, can I have it for my birthday?" the boy whispered, his voice almost swallowed by the chatter of the street. There was a mixture of hope and hesitation in his tone, a soft plea that only a father's heart could hear. The father crouched slightly, meeting his son's eyes. He spread a few bills across his palm, counting them slowly, deliberately. "It's $30, Ethan," he said gently. "That's the simplest I can manage." Ethan's eyes, wide and shimmering, flickered downward, as if trying to hide the tears threatening to spill. "Okay," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "Enter the store." Inside, the toy store smelled of plastic and candy, with the faint undertone of cardboard boxes stacked high. The shelves were lined with bright toys, action figures, and stuffed animals, but Ethan barely noticed them. His gaze remained fixed on the bicycle. Just as he was about to reach for it, a sharp voice rang out. "I want that motorcycle!" a girl exclaimed, her tone loud and demanding. Her father, tall and well-dressed, let out an exasperated sigh. "Sweetie, you already have 3 bikes at home. Do you really need another one?" Without waiting for a reply, he handed the cashier a crisp $200 bill. The girl huffed but followed, satisfied that she had gotten her way. Meanwhile, Ethan's heart sank. He watched in quiet despair as the toy was wrapped and carried out to the car. His lips trembled, and a single tear slid down his cheek. "It's okay, Dad," he said softly, though the words were hollow even to him. I didn't really want it." The father's eyes softened, filled with a mix of sympathy and heartache. "It's your birthday today, Ethan. So, what did you really want?" The boy lowered his gaze, his fingers nervously fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. He wanted to speak, to ask, but the memory of his mother lingered too painfully. She had passed just a month ago, after a long and exhausting battle with cancer. The father's voice caught in his throat as he whispered the truth. "You know why she passed, son." Ethan flinched, tears welling anew. He turned away, not wanting to be seen breaking again. The street seemed emptier now, the laughter and chatter around them fading into a dull, hollow sound. 20 minutes later, a small figure returned, breathless and hesitant. She carried an envelope slightly crumpled from her grasp. She approached Ethan cautiously, extending her hand. He took it, puzzled. Inside was a neatly folded stack of bills, $200, and a small handwritten note. His fingers trembled as he unfolded it. The note read, "Happy birthday, my love. Mother, she wrote this 2 months ago, planning this day. She asked me to give it to you and Ethan today." The father sank to his knees, the tears falling freely now as he pulled his son close. Ethan pressed the note to his chest, his small body trembling with emotion. "Dad, Mom remembered my birthday," he whispered. "She never forgot you, son," the father said, his voice breaking, enveloping Ethan in a warm, protective embrace. For a long moment, they stood together outside the toy store, the bustling city around them fading into insignificance. Then, hand in hand, they stepped inside to choose another bicycle, both crying and laughing as the attendant wrapped it carefully. 30 minutes later, they were back outside, waiting for the store dispatcher to bring their purchases to the car. Ethan's face was streaked with tears, but also lit with joy. His father walked beside him, a quiet smile breaking through his own grief. Meanwhile, in the luxury SUV parked nearby, the girl who had demanded the motorcycle watched silently, her eyes wide and contemplative. Her father sat beside her, frowning at the unusual stillness. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice soft now, almost afraid. "That boy, he looks so happy with just one bike. I have 3 and I'm not that happy." Ethan, hearing her words, turned slowly, looking directly at her. There was a calmness in his expression, a quiet wisdom beyond his years. "You know what my mom told me before she died?" he said gently. The girl shook her head, unsure. "She said, being thankful isn't about having a lot. It's about loving what you already have." Ethan's father bent down to meet her eye level, his voice carrying the weight of experience and love. "And if you have one thing that means everything, that is true happiness." The girl's composure shattered. Tears streamed down her face, and for the first time, her father could see the humility and understanding dawning in her eyes. The wealthy man sat silently, stunned. A child, barely 10, had just taught his daughter a lesson about life and gratitude that he had failed to convey in all her years. As the crisp autumn air swirled around them, Ethan and his father walked slowly down the sidewalk, the bicycles now safely loaded into the car, their cardboard boxes slightly crumpled but filled with the promise of joy. Ethan's small hands clutched the handlebars of his new bike, and his eyes sparkled with excitement. But there was still a quiet reverence in his movements, as if he carried both happiness and the memory of his mother in each motion. The father, though exhausted and emotionally drained, couldn't stop smiling, watching his son's face light up with the purest form of joy he had seen since his wife's passing. Meanwhile, the girl in the SUV remained silent, tears still streaking her cheeks as she processed the simple truth Ethan had shared. Her father tried to console her, suggesting that she had plenty and didn't need to cry over a lesson she already knew in theory, but the words fell flat. She had glimpsed a deeper meaning in that brief encounter, an understanding that material abundance meant little without gratitude and love. Ethan, sensing her gaze, turned once more, offering a small, gentle smile, as if acknowledging that the lesson was already taking root in her heart. Together, father and son reached their car, the boxes shifted carefully, and as they drove home through the golden streets, Ethan chattered about riding his new bike, planning imaginary races, and dreaming aloud in a way that made his father laugh through tears. The girl watched silently, reflecting on her own life, the luxury and possessions that surrounded her, and feeling a growing emptiness she couldn't ignore. That single afternoon, a child's innocence and wisdom had quietly bridged the gap between grief, joy, and understanding, teaching lessons about love, gratitude, and true happiness, lessons that money could never buy and that would linger in everyone's hearts long after the bicycles were unpacked and the street returned to its normal rhythm. By the time they reached home, the sun had dipped further, painting the sky in shades of deep orange and purple, and Ethan could hardly contain his excitement as he raced to the driveway, carefully unwrapping the bicycle boxes, with his father right behind him, laughing at his son's clumsiness and sharing in the moment of pure, unfiltered joy. Each piece of the bike seemed to hold magic for Ethan, and as he worked to assemble it with his father's guidance, he paused every so often to imagine riding down long hills, feeling the wind against his face, and imagining his mother cheering him on from somewhere beyond, her presence felt in the warmth of the afternoon. Inside, the girl who had demanded the motorcycle sat quietly in the back seat, reflecting on the simplicity of Ethan's happiness, and for the first time, she realized that her own possessions, shiny toys, expensive gadgets, and the latest trends, had never brought her this kind of genuine delight. Her father, noticing the change in her expression, asked quietly if she understood now, and she nodded through tears, feeling a strange mix of shame and enlightenment as she watched Ethan's father patiently guide his son, teaching him not just how to ride, but also how to cherish the moment, embrace gratitude, and carry love for those who were no longer with them. Ethan finally hopped on the assembled bike, wobbling slightly but quickly gaining balance, and his laughter rang out across the driveway, light and carefree, infecting his father with the same sense of relief and hope. The girl couldn't help but notice that all it took was a moment of sincerity, a gesture from a mother's heart, and the love between father and son to create something money could never purchase. True, radiant happiness. That evening, as the city's street lights flickered on and the cool breeze whispered through the trees, the lesson lingered quietly in the air. That joy was not found in abundance or wealth, but in love, gratitude, and the ability to cherish what truly mattered, a lesson that had traveled from a grieving mother's heart to a boy and unexpectedly to a girl who would never forget it. As evening settled into night, Ethan and his father sat on the porch, the two bicycles leaning against the railing, their tires still dusty from the short ride down the driveway, and Ethan recounted every detail of the afternoon, from the sparkle of the purple bike in the store window to the careful folding of the note from his mother, his small voice full of wonder and love. The father listened, heart swelling with both pride and sorrow, occasionally wiping tears from his own cheeks, grateful that his son could experience such pure happiness despite the shadow of loss that still hung over them. Meanwhile, the girl had returned home with her father, her earlier sulk replaced by a quiet contemplation. She sat alone in her room, her expensive toys scattered around her. Yet she found no joy in them, only a lingering echo of Ethan's laughter and the simple truth he had shared, which now rooted itself firmly in her mind. That night, the girl finally understood what her mother had tried to teach her before she had passed: that wealth was meaningless without appreciation and love, that possessions could never replace meaningful connection or the warmth of heartfelt memories. In his own home, Ethan carefully tucked the note from his mother into a small wooden box, placing it on his bedside table where he could see it each night, and whispered a quiet "thank you" to her, feeling her presence as strongly as if she were standing beside him. His father watched from the doorway, feeling the weight of both grief and joy, and realized that the small gestures, the love of a parent, and the lessons of kindness and gratitude were the true legacies they could pass on. Across the city, the girl lay awake, reflecting on the day's lesson. Her heart softened and her perspective shifted, and for the first time, she considered not what she wanted or could buy, but what she already had, and how she could treasure it more deeply, carrying a newfound humility that would shape her choices in the days to come. In the quiet of the night, the world seemed to pause, holding a moment of perfect clarity, that true happiness was measured not by abundance, but by love, memory, and the gratitude that made life's simple gifts shine brighter than any treasure could. The following morning dawned crisp and golden, and Ethan awoke eager to ride his new bicycle again, the note from his mother still clutched in his hands as he ran to the driveway, calling for his father to join him, who stepped outside with a gentle smile, the sun catching the tears in his eyes as he watched his son pedal confidently, laughing and shouting with a joy that seemed to heal both their hearts a little more with each turn of the wheels. Across the street, the girl could see them from her window, her eyes softening as she realized the depth of what she had witnessed. The laughter, the love, the simplicity of happiness that required nothing more than care, attention, and the presence of someone who truly loved you. Her father, noticing her quiet contemplation, chose not to interrupt, allowing the lesson to sink in naturally, understanding that this was a moment far more valuable than any argument, lecture, or gift he could provide. Ethan's father lifted him off the bike for a break, and together they sat on the steps, talking about his mother, sharing stories she had left behind, and embracing the warmth of memory that was now intertwined with this tangible moment of joy. Meanwhile, the girl picked up one of her own bicycles, dusty and neglected, and for the first time, she considered riding it not for show or to compete with friends, but simply to enjoy it, imagining the wind against her face and the freedom of motion that Ethan had shown her could bring happiness beyond possessions. Throughout that day, Ethan and his father continued their quiet celebration, each pedal stroke, laugh, and shared glance strengthening their bond and reminding them both that love and gratitude were the true treasures of life. The girl returned home later, smiling softly as she reflected on the lesson she had learned, understanding now that a single act of genuine love could teach more than any amount of wealth, and that happiness was not in the accumulation of things, but in the ability to appreciate, cherish, and share what mattered most. By evening, the city seemed quieter, the memories of that day settling like soft light into the hearts of all involved, leaving Ethan with a sense of connection to his mother that could never fade, his father with the quiet pride of having honored her memory, and the girl with the first taste of humility and gratitude that promised to guide her beyond the fleeting satisfaction of material desire into a life more thoughtful, compassionate, and truly joyful. As the days passed, the memory of that autumn afternoon stayed with all three children, though in very different ways. Ethan rode his bicycle every chance he got, his laughter ringing through the neighborhood, and each ride reminded him of his mother's love, the note she had left, and the simple joy that came from appreciating the gifts life offered, no matter how small. His father watched him often, a mixture of pride and lingering grief filling his chest. But he felt lighter, knowing that his son's heart carried both love and gratitude, lessons that would guide him through childhood and beyond. The girl, too, began to change. She no longer demanded or expected new toys, and she started to notice small joys in her life, reading quietly in her room, helping a neighbor, or simply watching the sunset, realizing that happiness was crafted through appreciation rather than accumulation. Her father observed the subtle shift in her behavior and could not help but marvel at the unexpected teacher that young Ethan had become, understanding that some lessons could not be taught, only experienced and witnessed. In the weeks that followed, the neighborhood seemed richer with quiet moments of kindness, shared smiles, and unspoken understanding, as if the ripple of one simple act, one mother's foresight and one father's patience, had touched more lives than anyone could have imagined. Ethan's father often found himself pausing to reflect on the fragility and beauty of life, feeling grateful for the small victories, the tender bonds, and the reminders that joy could be found in the simplest of things. A shared laugh, a cherished memory, or the smile of a child discovering the world anew. And in that quiet reflection, he realized that grief and happiness could coexist, that loss could deepen love rather than diminish it, and that a single act of thoughtful intention, like a mother's note or a father's patience, could shape a lifetime of values, creating a legacy far more enduring than any material possession. The girl, now more thoughtful and gentle, occasionally glanced across the street to see Ethan riding his bicycle, and she smiled softly, carrying in her heart the knowledge that happiness and gratitude were treasures she would never forget, lessons gifted to her by a boy she had once overlooked, and by witnessing a love so simple yet so profound that it reshaped her understanding of what truly mattered in life. Months passed, and the memory of that autumn day became a quiet foundation for the lives of everyone involved, with Ethan growing more confident and joyful. Each ride on his bicycle, a celebration of his mother's love and the bond he shared with his father, who continued to nurture and guide him with patience, wisdom, and the quiet strength of someone who had learned the depth of loss and the power of gratitude. The father often reflected on the note from his wife, realizing that her foresight and care had not only given Ethan happiness in that moment, but had planted seeds of resilience and compassion that would grow with him, shaping the young boy into someone who understood the true value of life's simplest gifts. Across the street, the girl's transformation became more apparent. She approached her daily life with newfound humility, noticing the needs of others, appreciating the love she received, and finding joy in moments that once seemed ordinary, all because she had witnessed Ethan's authentic happiness and understood the lesson he had shared. Her father, observing the change in her, felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that sometimes wisdom arrives unexpectedly, through people and experiences rather than lectures or money, and he began to value the importance of empathy, patience, and attentiveness in raising his daughter. On weekends, Ethan and his father would often take long rides together, sharing stories, memories of his mother, and moments of laughter, each outing reinforcing the lessons of love, gratitude, and the joy found in shared experiences. While the girl, inspired by what she had seen, began volunteering small acts of kindness in her community, finding that helping others brought a satisfaction far greater than any toy or gift. Over time, the three children, though they had only briefly crossed paths, carried the echoes of that day with them, and the lesson endured that true happiness is not measured by abundance, possessions, or wealth, but by the love, gratitude, and connection one nurtures with family, friends, and the world around them. A lesson born from a mother's foresight, a father's devotion, and the simple joy of a child who understood that even a single bicycle, a handwritten note, and the warmth of love could illuminate hearts in ways nothing else could. Years later, the memory of that autumn day remained vivid in Ethan's heart, shaping the person he had become. A thoughtful, compassionate young man who carried his mother's love and his father's lessons in every action, and who understood that joy could be found not in what he owned, but in how he treated others and cherished the relationships he nurtured. The father, now older and grayer, would often watch Ethan with pride, remembering the small, tear-streaked face outside the toy store and feeling grateful for the gift his wife had left behind. A simple note that had sparked a lifetime of understanding, love, and resilience in their son. The girl, too, had grown into a kind and considerate young woman, her perspective on life forever changed by a moment she had witnessed as a child. She had learned to appreciate what she had, to value love over material wealth, and to seek happiness in gratitude, connection, and small acts of kindness, carrying Ethan's lesson with her into every decision and interaction. Occasionally, she would catch glimpses of Ethan riding through the neighborhood or passing by on his bicycle, and a quiet smile would touch her lips as she recalled the day a boy had taught her a truth that no lecture or privilege ever could. That happiness was about love, presence, and the appreciation of what truly mattered, a lesson that transcended wealth, status, and the fleeting appeal of possessions. In that way, the ripples of one small act of foresight, a mother's love preserved in a note, a father's patience, and a child's pure joy, had extended far beyond its initial moment, transforming hearts and shaping lives, proving that the simplest gestures grounded in love and care often hold the power to teach the most enduring and profound lessons about life, happiness, and the human heart. Drop a heart in comment, like and subscribe my channel, and visit my channel for more interesting stories.